Hey everybody, Questwise here, and today I want to talk about a game that gets a lot of flack. This game also has a lot of fans, though, and I want to give it the credit it's due. So today we're going to be talking about Fate Accelerated and why I think it's awesome. So Fate Accelerated is a product. It is a sort of like, it's not a quick start. It's a full game. It weighs in at a crazy, however many pages, 45 pages. Weighs in at 45 pages. It's a $5 product. It's a slimmed down version of Fate Core. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Fate Core, only because I think it was overly complicated for what it was. Then someone had told me about Fate Accelerated and how they've used it for a numerous amount of different things, as well as the cool Dresden Files Accelerated RPG that's just come out that uses the same rules set. So I thought I'd give this a shot. I mean, for $5, can't hurt, right? Here's why I love it. Here's why I really, really like it. You know me when it comes to storytelling. I love to tell a great story, and I love to do it collaboratively. I like it when the players have an invested interest in the story and are able to make their contributions to it as well. So, while I love traditional things like Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder and Starfinder and Palladium and all these other Dungeon Crawl classics, I love these traditional sort of role-playing games in which you take on a role and you play it through adventures created by a dungeon master. The reason why I love Fate Accelerated is because it puts the collaboration process instantly into the hands of the game master as well as the players. What do I mean by that? Well, in Fate Accelerated, the world, the story can be created by the game master. It's best if the game master comes to the table with a sort of theme in mind, and then it sort of grows from there. So, for instance, say I'm running the game and I come to the table and I want to run a Pirates of Darkwater adventure game. So, based on the old 80s, 90s cartoon Pirates of Darkwater, this is my theme, okay? I come to the table and I tell the players, this is the idea I have. This is the kind of setting that I'd like to run the game in. And then they, hopefully, are old enough to remember Pirates of Darkwater, and they begin to create characters based on that theme. But it's very, very open to what they want to create. Character creation in this game is super fast. It is super easy to do. You basically have a high concept, which is, what is your character? And in just a general sense. I'm the captain of the swarthy dog, okay? That's a high concept. Or I am the thief of Baghdad. You know, like these are these kind of high concepts that kind of describe your character in a sentence or less, that sort of give you an open playground to build stories with. Then there are things called aspects that sort of narrow down that concept a little bit more. They're aspects about your characters. They're words or phrases that exemplify who your character is and what they can do in a sort of broad, overarching sense. And then there are your approaches. Approaches are how you're going to tackle things, all right? And then this game has just a list of short approaches, things like flashy or quick or cautious. They're keywords that explain how you're going to approaches any given sort of task or obstacle. And in that, there are 4 actions that you can take. There are attack, defend, overcome, or create an advantage. So you come into a situation where I describe the area. I come to you and I say, you're on the ship of the swarthy dog, and sunlight is beginning to break over the horizon, and you see before you a city which is in flames. And then the characters begin to weigh in on what they want to do. They sort of set the scene themselves as well, too. So it's like watching a movie, but having the characters sort of describe what it is that they're introducing their characters into. So I've just set up the scene that sunlight has come up over this small village. That's, you're approaching this village by sea, and the village is in flames. So player A, who's playing the captain of the swarthy dog, might say things like, you see, my character, he kind of narrates what's happening. So you see my character, the captain of the swarthy dog, emerge from the bowels of the ship, and standing on the prow of the mighty boat, begins to survey the situation with his spyglass. And each character gets to do this, and they get to talk about how, whatever the obstacle is, how they're going to approach that obstacle. And whether or not, when they roll the dice, and the dice in this mechanic and this game are really, really cool, how they're going to approach this situation. I carefully survey the upcoming obstacle, yada, 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 whatever it is they're going to do. But they get a chance into sort of creating the scenes themselves and helping to sort of flesh out the narrative. And I really like that about this game. I like the fact that characters and the players are fully invested in the game, and they get to create things in it as well, too. Now, this game is amazing at running one-shots. I don't know how well the aspect of this game would be to run a full campaign on a small rule set like this. Though I don't think it would be hard. But one-shots are amazing, and they're easy because you don't have to have anything in mind, anything prepared when you come to the table with this, because the characters get to interact with this as well, too. And they get to sort of collaborate with the game master into what this game is. You can come to the table with a completely blank slate and sit down with the characters and the players and say, okay, what is the story we want to tell? Where is it that we want to go today? What do we want to tell today? Do we want to tell a high adventure story? Do we want to tell an espionage story? Do we want to tell a horror story? Whatever it is that the players and the game master want to come up with is easily to build on the fly. Here's another reason why. Going back to the aspects thing. The characters have aspects that help define their characters as well, too. These are short words and phrases that help sort of narrow down and define what the characters can do in a broad sense. The game master also has the ability to use these things as well on scenes, on the world itself. So, for instance, back to our example about the swarthy dog approaching this burning city, I can add aspects, and it's usually really cool to use 3x5 cards for this, to write these aspects down, because these are things that the characters can use to interact with in the scene itself. So I could say an aspect of the scene is fire, ruined buildings, and panicking citizens, okay? And I'll write these on separate 3x5 cards and lay them on the table. These are going to be things that the players can use to try to overcome, to roll dice, to gain advantages, to use to their advantage, or as an obstacle to overcome in order to roll dice to progress the story. So the scenes themselves sort of have aspects. They have things that the game master can add to them that creates obstacles and or advantages for the players. You could say, if you're in a dungeon crawl, that there are, when you describe a thing, be like dimly lit, and or spiked floor, rune carvings on the wall. So the character, say character A, comes into this and he's a thief. He's playing a thief in this dungeon crawl that we've created, okay? And he's going to say, I'm going to use the dimly lit aspect to further my sneaky approach to the scene itself. So he's going to use that to his advantage. But he might be trying to overcome the spiked floor so he can get to the wall to read the runic inscriptions. So you can see how this game sort of builds on itself. And again, I want to go back and talk about how the players interact as well too, because I think that's an amazing aspect of this game, is the players have a lot of investedness in this thing as well too. This is a break from a very traditional RPG that we know and we love. The players generally only interact and only get a say in the scene as what their characters is written on their character sheet, and what, as far as what their abilities and kind of things are. This game also supports a thing called fate points. Fate points can do things like they can help you re-roll dice, they can help you do a number of things. But one of those things that fate points can do is that they can allow the player to change an aspect of the game. This is where this game gets a lot of grief from the community, is that if we're playing a role-playing game, why do the players get to run the game? Why do they get to have a say in how things are created? So you can spend a number of fate points in order to change the scene itself, whether it be to the advantage of things. Now, this is a collaborative storytelling thing. So you can't just say, oh, the enemies die and we're safe and we get the treasure and everything's okay. It has to sort of advance the storyline in some sort of memorable and exciting way. But it's doable, and I really like that collaborative effort of that game. Is this a game that's going to make me throw away all my others and sell all my books from my previous games? No, it's really not. Because I like the depth and the grit of a lot of these other games that provides for me. And I love that traditional nature of things like Palladium Fantasy and Rifts and D&D. But I like bringing Fate with me to conventions, Fate Accelerated with me to conventions, because it's a very quick and it's a very easy way to do a collaborative storytelling event. That's it. It's a great thing. It's cheap. It's fun to try out. It's easy to learn. It takes a little bit of wrapping your head around things a little bit at first, because it is very different from, your most traditional games where you roll dice trying to hit a target number and so on. The way the dice work in this is that every player gets to roll these 4 6-sided dice, and the dice have no numbers. They have 2 sides that have plus signs on them, 2 sides that are blank, and 2 sides that have minus symbols on them or negative symbols on them. And you roll the 4 dice, adding any sort of modifiers from the aspects or from your advantages or whatever you have, and you tally up your successes and failures. So if you roll 2 plus signs and a blank and a negative sign, you have 1 success, okay? Because the plus and the negative cancel each other out, the blank has no effect, and your additional plus sign or your positive is your success. So that's basically how the dice work, and you compare it to whatever the success modifier is, the goal is of that scene. You decide how many successes you've got and how that applies to the scene itself to advance the story. Very, very cool. One of the ones I'm really excited about picking up is the Dresden Files Accelerated game. If you're a fan of Jim Butcher's Dresden Files, I think that they did this very, very well to capture the Fate Accelerated rules and to make things a little bit more simpler when it comes to role-playing wise, and make it a more collaborative storytelling effort. So that's it. Fate Accelerated. Love it or hate it. I'm giving it a thumbs up. Next time you see me at a convention or something, ask me. I always have this with me. We'll run a game. We'll put something together. If you want to see some examples of that, check out YouTube. Just type in Fate Accelerated Actual Play. Some great stuff out there. In fact, I just watched one based on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the cartoon series. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. If you're not a fan, I'm sorry. You wasted your time watching this video. I know there's a lot of people who really, really dislike Fate. But I think it's a very interesting concept. And like I said, Fate Core, I wasn't really impressed with. Because I felt like it was too much. Like there was too much stuff that was almost overly complicated. But Fate Accelerated really, really drove it home and created an awesome product. And again, like I said, the sky's the limit. You could do all sorts of stuff from this. From our example of Pirates of Darkwater, 90s cartoon kind of stuff, to horror. Excuse me. I want to even try like a Harry Potter game. I think that would be kind of cool too. So check it out if you haven't already. Fate Accelerated. As always, we are supported and backed by TC Paintball and TC War Room here in Traverse City, Michigan. Please always support your friendly local game store. If you're ever in Northern Michigan, please check these guys out. If you're not ever in Northern Michigan or don't ever have a chance to get here, please support your friendly local game store. And if you don't have one, find a game store that will support you. Until next time, I'm Questwise, and we're out.